Hello, hello, you guys. We are live. Welcome to week number 2 of our 90 Days of Greatness 3.0. And so let's get started. So first of all, I have to talk a little bit about this cruise. This is so timely, right? For this program to start right as the company launches like the best promotion ever. Its brilliance, its qualifications, its time frame, its reward. I mean, it really doesn't get any better than this. And so one thing I've been having conversations with directors about is talking about it every day and to really like get your script down that anytime you're in front of anyone, you're talking about the cruise. At your parties, at your facials, at your meetings, at your new consultant training, at your workshops, on career surveys, talking to people over coffee, like anyone you're in front of, you talk about the cruise. And you just want to get your languaging down that I could like wake you up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. and say, tell me about the cruise. And you like, blah, you spit it out and you talk about it to people. And if you're not talking about it every day, and I'm serious, you guys, having some conversation about it every day with someone, you're not in front of enough people. You want to get tired of hearing your own self talk about it. That's how much you want to talk about it. It just has to be like so present, which is going to feed your own mind and belief and just rally the people who are around you for their support and participation in the promotion. And so what's your wording for it? You know, this is the never been done before in Mary Kay history. We are part of a movement that is making history. They are offering this reward to the entire sales force for the first time ever. There's never been a reward like this that the entire sales force could really legitimately earn. And something I think that's going to be important to say at your parties and your meetings, you guys, is somebody could start Mary Kay today and be on the cruise in October and earn it. The qualifications are that simple and streamlined that someone could start today and earn it. Someone could start in February, in March, in April, and even in May and June and still qualify for that trip. And I don't know, at least in my history in Mary Kay, that there's been that level of a reward for someone new in the company. And that's tangible to people. Your guests at your parties, your guests at your meeting, they can wrap their hands around that because it can often feel like success in a business like this seems far off or not, like they just can't grab it. They can't picture themselves earning a trip. They can't picture themselves earning a free car. But when you communicate that they could start today and be on that cruise in October, you guys, I mean, this is going to forever change the trajectory of our business and our company. Like, I think it's that big. So what's your verbiage? What's your lingo? How do you talk about it? How do you romance it? How do you describe it? Somebody was asking me the other day, like, well, when someone asks how to earn it, you know, what do I really say at a meeting? Let's say you're at a meeting or a workshop or a party. And I wouldn't go into specific qualifications, not because it's a secret, but because it's a language they don't know. Okay, they don't know qualified and red jacket and wholesale. Those terms aren't familiar to them. And so you just wouldn't use terms that's going to create any sort of confusion or cause it to feel out of reach. And so I would just break it down to the most simple form, which is essentially our marketing plan. It says when you hit certain sales goals over the next 6 months and share the opportunity and move into leadership, that is essentially how you earn the trip. Now, there's more details to it than that. That as you get started with your business, you'll understand some of the qualifications, but it's essentially how you earn it by working your Mary Kay business by building a customer base, and you very naturally build a team and support people in doing the same. Okay, so it's just like quintessentially the essence of what we do in Mary Kay, which is another reason why it is so brilliant. So let's get started with today's Hangout. We're going to kind of stay on the personal business vibe that we started last week, that being really the most foundational system out of all the 6 systems that make up a successful Mary Kay business and career. That's the foundation, is you working personally and you being in the field. And so we kicked that off last week. So many of you had a book 15 or more by the 5th, so I'm just celebrating that. It was fun to read all the posts and the wins and the discoveries and the aha moments along the way as you guys really pushed for that. And so keep going, guys, keep going, so that on February 1st, when that rolls around really quickly, you are ready already with a book 10. Like a book 10 is already in motion because you've stayed consistent with your booking calls and you've booked from your bookings in January, that it's just naturally pouring over into February. And so that February 1st through the 5th, you're not scrambling for bookings, you're sort of confirming what you already have and maybe adding to what you already have to make it an even more abundant month. And we're gonna actually talk about that concept of linked power starts, where a power start or activity you do in one month spills over and connects to the next month. We're going to talk about that term today. And so, so let me tell you a couple stories just to stay on this personal business theme we have going on here, because I want you to really grasp it and embrace it and think new thoughts and have breakthroughs and overcome limiting beliefs when it comes to your personal business. And so our first full year as a unit, we earned the top director trip at 650 and just, sort of barely crossed the line of 650. Then the next year we did 700,000. The goal was $1 million, but we landed at 700,000 retail. And I was disappointed we didn't do the $1 million, yet was just celebrating growth and that we grew from last year and did another, level of a unit club. We also had a few more offspring. And so yay, growth was happening. And then the third full year as a unit, we, barely earned the trip. Like we squeaked over, we flopped over the line of 650. And for a minute, it was looking like, yeah, I don't know if this is coming together. And so that was the first year that I personally triple starred. I had double starred maybe 1 or 2 years before that with sales and the unit club. But that was the first time I really grasped the recruiting piece and earned the B. The years before that, my year as a consultant and then 2 years as a director, I did about half of a B. So I was landing anywhere between 12 and maybe like 17 or 18 qualified. So I was a strong personal recruiter and a consistent personal recruiter pretty early on in my business, but had never really figured out how to earn the B. And I really wanted to earn the B, and I knew the B was the key to NSD. And so I wanted the B, but just couldn't get it. Like I couldn't get it. And my personal business was strong and thriving, but I just kept landing at like half of a B. And so I looked at my numbers because I did track them. That is one advantage of tracking. You kind of look back and see patterns and see numbers kind of come together, which can inform you of what to do or tweak or change. And so I looked back and saw that in those 3 years that I did about a half a B, I was doing anywhere from 7 to 8 career surveys and guests on average per month. Some months were higher, some months were lower, but on average it was about 7 to 8 personal sharing appointments, which, gosh, that sounds really low. But yeah, 7 to 8 on average led to about half of a B. And so what my brain thought is, okay, double the activity and double the results. And so that's what I did. So I set the goal to have 15 personal sharing appointments, whether they were career surveys on the phone or in coffee, or whether they were guests to meeting. I counted all 3 of those circumstances or scenarios as one of the 15. And that was around the time, you guys, I really committed to guests to meeting. Remember, I was sitting in Panera, and after 3 weeks of nobody showing up, made the decision that I would lead by example and take personal responsibility for growth. And so that's when I committed to the guest to meeting. And so having guests to meeting really quickly like amped my sharing number up really fast. And here's the great thing, without adding any work hours. Okay. So all of a sudden I had all these guests to meeting, and that was my sweet spot for recruiting them. I would recruit them at the meeting or a follow-up phone call or multiple layers after the meeting. But the meeting was definitely a significant layer in the recruiting process. And so I was getting more results without adding work hours. Can you get excited about that? I was working hard and smart. I was going to go and be at that meeting for 2 hours a week anyways. That was just on my agenda, on my calendar. It was something I was committed to. And so you may as well maximize that time. And part of maximizing that time for me was having guests, my personal guests, to the meeting consistently. And so that cranked up my 7 to 8 on average easily to 15. And that's what I did. Some months were higher than that, some months were lower, but my average was 15 guests to meeting and or career surveys and follow-up calls for that year. And that was the first year I did the B. I did 24 qualified, but was ranked number 5 in Pearl Seminar because I just did it evenly. Like I didn't save it all till the end. I was just like the tortoise, and pretty much every month got my 2 qualified, 2 qualified, and 2 qualified. And on average, I recruited, I think it was like 3.5 people per month as far as agreements. So I was medaling, at least at the bronze medal level, and getting a couple qualified out of that on average per month. Like I remember at leadership, I was on target with 12. And so I didn't do it super fast. I didn't do it super slow. I just did it evenly. And what that allowed is that the people I recruited early on in the seminar year, it just allowed their orders and their retail to add up, which allowed my commissions to build. And so I was number 5 in the Pearl Seminar with only 24 qualified, but my commissions were really high because I started in the beginning of the year. And so we did the B for the first time, did National Court of Sales, which had sort of become pretty simple, pretty easy to do because I was in the field and had my customer base. And that I did that for the first time, a triple star, the first time that we almost didn't earn the trip. And I know you would think like, well, man, the first year she triple starred, you'd think you would go higher, but there were a lot of other variables. There's always other variables, right? The 5 years we were in the trip, we always earned it in a little bit of a different way. We always had different strengths throughout the year. So no year ever looked the same. So just know that. And you can never like look at my journey and try to copy it. You're gonna have your own journey and your own way that you do it, okay? And so here's the thing though, that 650 year where we like eked over the line, like flopped ourselves over the line of 650 with not a penny to spare. It was that year that I triple starred. And imagine, you guys, imagine taking out my personal work. Imagine, like even the Court of Sales, take out 20,000 retail from 650,000 retail. That's not the trip. We would have still landed in the 600s, but 620 ain't 650. When it comes to unit clubs, there is a vast difference, like close but no cigar. A day late and $1 short is what that is. And so my personal work helped us squeak over the line. And then the B. You know, my habit, my ritual was about a half a B. If I would have landed at a half a B again, we would have missed the trip because those 12 qualified. I mean, let's say they even only did 600, which I doubt that that's what happened. They probably did more than that, but let's say they just did 600. Let's take 12 qualified times 1,200 retail, because a 600 wholesale order is 1,200 retail. That's almost 15,000 retail. Again, that's the difference between a trip and not a trip. So you take out that personal work, that would have taken us down a unit club or two. So do a little exercise, you guys. Look at your own personal quarts last year, if you happen to know those numbers, and project if you would have finished the National Court of Sales or recruiting. Think about the retail that would have added to your unit club. I almost want to do the math. Okay, so let's say I did half a B. That would have left me short 14,400 retail. And let's say I did half the quota sharing, so plus 20,000. So yeah, 34,000. So that takes 650 down to 620 something, or 615. Yeah, so big difference, right? So think back to last year and where you finished. What would your personal quarts, where would those have put you as far as your unit club? I bet some of you who may not have finished a unit club, it would have finished a unit club. And that's $1,000 bonus. That is a plaque from the company. That's a bar pin. That's a walk across stage. That's a lot of reward tied up in that. Some of you who maybe didn't finish $500,000 maybe would have. Some of you who didn't finish the trip, I know that's painful to even think about, but it could have been the trip. It could have been maybe the $1 million for some people to add in the retail that comes from that personal work. And so that leads me to my next point about personal business and why it's so significant. And so let me explain this, because I want you to really grasp this. That it was very much emotional management for me. That if I knew I was doing all that I could do personally and was just walking in obedience to my personal work and leading by example and leading myself first and being out in front of my unit, leading the way with the desire for them to follow and for them to learn from me, versus the unit's out here and I'm trying to push the unit along. I'm like, no, come with me, not, hey, let me tell you what to do. You know, there's a big difference in that type of leadership, leading out in front versus pushing from behind. And so I just needed that for my own personal integrity and emotional management. Because I don't know if I could have emotionally handled that. To miss the trip after earning it for 2 years, and to miss it, and to possibly know I missed it because I didn't do all I could. Like if I wouldn't have finished the personal quota sales and sharing, in my mind, that's like doing all you can. It's like nailing those quarts as a leader. And had I not, and then we didn't finish the trip, you guys, I mean, like it kind of makes my stomach turn. I would want to throw up. And that would have been really hard to emotionally process. And I know there would have been some guilt and shame that I would have poured upon myself for not doing all that I knew I could do with that. And I could always return to what I call my center. You know, we all have our center where we're good. We're good, we're strong, we're in joy, we're in faith, we're working with abundance, not carrying a load of anxiety, shame, or guilt. We're walking it out. And sometimes the scoreboard looks good and sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't matter. And our scoreboard's not the identity. Our identity, it's not, we don't get too emotionally tied up in the scoreboard because we're here, we're centered, we're walking it out, walking in obedience, doing what we know we can do. Because what else can you do but everything you can do? You know, there's nothing else to do but do what you can control every day and walk in obedience every day. And when you do that, when you stay centered and really, really just wrap your hands around what you can control, and your personal business is number one for a Mary Kay sales director as far as what you can control, that goes at the top of the list. Okay, everything else is working with your unit and people. You can't control people. You can influence them, lead them, encourage them, guide them, but you can't control what they do. But you can control your choices. And so when you know you're controlling what you can control, staying centered, wrapping your hands around it, like squeezing the life out of it, sinking your teeth into it, there is a level of peace and satisfaction that comes from that, and emotional stability that comes from that, that keeps you centered and keeps you in joy. Versus like out in like crazy world, like if you're not here, you're like out in crazy land, like wandering in the wilderness, trying to control things you actually can't control. And usually that's people. And that's no fun for you or for them, to try to control people or feel desperate for your unit. You can't lead people that you need. And people can feel that. When they feel like you need them to hit production, you need them to stay a director, you need them to earn the car, you need them to finish your unit club or finish your goals. Ooh, people don't like that. That's like sandpaper on your heart. That feels icky for you and for them. And so we have to position ourselves as leaders where we're not leading out of need and desperation, but we're leading out of abundance and joy and like being centered on I control the controllables. I lead myself first. I lead by example. I lead out in front and desire to bring people along with me on this beautiful journey that I'm on. I don't lead from behind and try to push people or need people for my own goals or income. I lead out in front. That moves you into a whole different level of leadership when you operate like that. And your personal business is how you learn to really operate like that and have emotional management in the journey. We've got to be able to end the day and put our heads on our pillows and say, like, Lord, I gave him my all today. Like, I gave all of me to all of this. I left nothing on the table. I did the best I could with what I've been given and what I've shown. I didn't make excuses. I showed up today. I poured my heart out today. It wasn't perfect because that's not the expectation, and nobody is, and it will never look perfect. I can design a perfect day, but I don't think I've ever lived one. So that's not what we're going after, my friends. We are just going after the best and highest version of ourselves and giving all of ourselves to all that God has called us to. And when we can go to bed and lay our head on the pillow and really say, like, yes, I did it today. I did the best I could with what I've been given. I poured myself out into this. I walked in obedience today. I designed a good day and walked it out to the best of my ability. I controlled what I can control, which is me. And when we can say that, you guys, there is just a level of peace and satisfaction and joy in the journey that makes it worth it. And makes this journey so fun, makes this career so fun. And it's what makes our lives look desirable. And it's what makes our careers and our businesses look desirable, because people can see that and they can tell. We stand out when we operate like that. Okay? So there you go. I feel like I'm hearing a lot of notifications. I'm gonna like check in on our Facebook group and like make sure everything's okay. I feel like I keep hearing a lot of like stuff. Yeah, okay, I think we're good. Okay, so with that being said, let me tell you another story. And this was a few years ago. Mary Kay Corporate invited me to speak at the National Sales Director Assembly in Gothenburg, Sweden. And it was with Western and Central European national sales directors. It was sort of like the NSD summit that US nationals do. We do it every November in Dallas. It's where all the national sales directors gather and we brainstorm and we collaborate and we train each other and support each other. Our inner circle NSDs lead it in Dallas. And then for the Western and Central European NSDs, they always have a US NSD come as the guest speaker. And so I got to go to that. It's one of my top 5 best life experiences ever. I got to take Cliff. So they flew us to Sweden, had this like world-class 5-star experience there with the food and the hotel and the experience. Got to see Mary Kay corporate over in Sweden, which is modeled after the building in Dallas, just like a smaller, more mini version. So that was super cool. And got to be trained by and learn from the NSDs in Europe. And there was a NSD from Spain, and she was a younger NSD. And recently, I think maybe in her first year or second year, became an inner circle NSD based on how they rank it over in Europe. And she was training, and she said something that I will forever remember. And God took me to Sweden to hear this one sentence that I'm about to read to you. And by the way, let me back this story up. They had those national sales directors had such a deep, abiding, passionate gratitude for this opportunity in a way that I have never seen it before. And let me tell you that the US NSDs have such a deep, abiding, passionate gratitude for this opportunity. They do, and it's inspiring to see it every day, and it's inspiring to have girlfriends like that. But whoa, when I went to Europe and learned from those NSDs, there was something different about it, something unique, something special about it, something different. Their depth of gratitude that I think we can all learn from here in the US, but it stuck out to me so significantly. I'm like, whoa, this has got a different vibe to it. And I'll always remember that. And it made a lasting impression on me. And so this national sales director gets up and she's training in Spanish. And so there's a translator. And she said, I will not delegate inner circle to my national area. Okay, she was talking about how she did inner circle the first year. She said, I will not delegate inner circle to my area without taking personal responsibility to be in the field creating the growth. And I have repeated that phrase in my mind a million times. And so I want you to make it personal and go ahead and fill in the blank. And I want you to speak it out loud. I will not delegate blank to my unit without taking personal responsibility to be in the field creating the growth. Okay? I will not delegate blank. Cruise, Premier Club, Cadillac, Unit Club. I will not delegate blank to my unit without taking personal responsibility. Okay, remember the leaders out in front. Without taking personal responsibility to be out in the field creating the growth. And so, let us move on. And it is my desire to, in our last half of the Hangout today, to get through all these 6 systems. And I've never done it. I've never done it before. This is version 3.0, and the first several times that I trained on this, I've never been able to get through it, but I really want to, so I'm going to really try to. But I also don't want you guys to miss anything that I feel like is significant. But I want to briefly do a brief overview of all the 6 systems and just touch on them. Because there are several that it's going to be a couple months until we get to them. It's a 90-day program, a 13-week program. There's 13 Hangouts. So some things we're not going to touch on until 10 weeks from now. And so the reason why I want to touch on all of them is because I want you to ponder all of them. And that is your task for this week in the workbook. I don't know what page it is, but it's in week 2. All the 6 systems are, there's a section for each of them and just some reflection questions for you guys to fill out to guide yourself and to guide your thinking in the ones that maybe need tweaks or changes or complete transformations or energy or time or new systems. I want you guys to consider that. Now, I do not think it would be wise to work on all six of them at the same time because nobody has the capacity for that. That's just too much. I mean, pick one, maybe two. But I want you to at least be able to identify the most significant areas you want to work on and give energy to and tweak and change before we get to week 13 when they're all completely covered. So that's your task, to go through the questions, jot down some thoughts, and identify the one, maybe two, maybe three, but probably no more than that, those areas that you want to work on. And let me tell you about like systems and implementing them. Don't rush to do it. Don't ever take like a whole day to do them. Don't ever take a whole week to do them. You want to fit them in on the fringes and break them down into little small chunks and pieces. Okay. I would like cringe to hear that you maybe took a whole like working day to work on like your newsletter or pick collages or like anything like that. And those things are of value, but not during people hours, and not to ever take away from income producing activities. Those are on the fringes. Those are like before 9 and after 9. And those are delegating, and those are like fitting it into little pockets of time after you eat the frog, which is booking, coaching, selling, and recruiting and being in front of people. That is first and foremost. Then and only then do we fit system building in on the fringes. Okay. So let's go through the 6. Let's review the 6. With, of course, the first being the foundation, which is your personal business. Let me catch up in my notes here. Okay, here we go. Yes, it's your personal business. So this cruise, whatever quantum leap you're desiring, I would say 99% of you listening to this, like personal business is the answer to the cruise and to the quantum leap that you really want to experience in your business. So a couple of things, as I have coached a lot of directors through personal business, there are some things that really stand out as opportunities for growth. And one is just the mindset of like, do now what most won't, so you can enjoy for the rest of your life what most people can't. You don't have to have 3 to 5 parties a week for the rest of your life. But you do today. Okay? It's not forever. But it is today in this season for those leaders listening to this who desire growth. And you're like a certain number of parties away from, whether it's top director or million or executive or NSD, whatever your big goal is, you're a certain number of parties away from that. And I don't know what your party number is. I wish I would have tracked how many parties I held. I mean, I could probably go back and figure it out, honestly. I held on average 3 a week for 5 years, so I could easily figure that out. And I don't know what your number is, but just like, don't drag it out. Just like, do it. Those parties, you're still gonna have to do them to get here. You probably have to do more if you drag it out and drag your feet about it. But just like, do them. Go do them. Because it shortens the time between you and that goal. So the number of parties isn't going to change. It's only going to grow as time goes on. And so just like, go do them. Go do them faster. Go do more at a time, because it's only going to speed up your progress to getting to here, wherever here is for you. It's not going to go away. It's not going to change. Remember me like going to events my first year as a director, like looking for the secret, hoping it wasn't maybe what I thought it was, only to find out it was personal business and holding parties and being in the field and being in front of people. And so once I finally embraced that, I'm like, well, that's what it is. So here I go. And that's not going to change, my friends. It's not going to change. There's no other answer. There's no other secret. One thing that I learned over time was to work hard and smart. And so I shared with you one way I worked smarter, and that was guest to meeting and really maximizing that 2-hour time frame. I made more money and got more results, but didn't work anymore. Okay, we need to find ways to do that where we are maximizing the time we're investing. Another way I felt like I worked smart that really worked for me were maximizing my Saturdays. If you don't like to work on Saturdays, pick another day. So don't get all hung up on Saturday. I liked to get up and out the door on Saturdays. I enjoyed that. I like to get up, go do my thing in the morning, in the afternoon, and then Saturday evening, I would say probably 90% of my Mary Kay directorship was always off with family, with friends, doing fun things on the weekends, and then off all of Sunday. And so I got that like full, just like fully checked out, unplugged, in rest mode, enjoying a day of rest. And I loved that. And so it was almost like my reward, you guys, for getting up early on Saturday morning. I would go do a muffins and makeovers, probably like 3 out of the 4 Saturdays a month. And then after that, I would hold 1 or 2 or 3 personal parties. And I would have all my personal work and faces done in one day, really, is how I eventually learned to work, and how I eventually chose to work, was just to knock it out in one day. It felt efficient to me. It felt abundant. It felt good, because by that time I was doing the second and third party, I was just in my rhythm. So I felt more effective and on point. And then my leisure, my unplug, my check out and enjoy the weekend with my friends and my family and do fun things and have a day of rest was so satisfying, because I knew I killed it. You know, leisure is not leisure unless you know you did the things you needed to do when you needed to do them. And then you can really enjoy rest, leisure, fun, social time, quiet time, whatever it is that fills your cup and rejuvenates you. It only feels good when you worked hard. You know, have you noticed that? Have you ever noticed like it's time to take time off or have leisure or unplug, but if you didn't do what you know you needed to do when you needed to do it, it's like you can't sit still. You just feel like, uneasy, unrested, not at peace, because you're carrying that thought, that guilt, that burden of like, oh, I didn't do what I needed to do when I needed to do it. And now it's time to rest. And I don't want to rest because I need to work, because I didn't work when I was supposed to work. And so, so that was my rhythm. Saturdays were big power days. And then if I did do a personal party during the week, it was in the afternoon. And I wanted my evenings free for my unit or my family. Okay, during the week, I was like pouring into my unit, my leaders, my new people, or I was home with my family. And I wanted to save those evenings. It felt wasteful as a top director. Okay, not as a newer director with a smaller unit size, but as a top director, it felt wasteful to spend a weeknight doing my own personal business. Like I wanted to clear that out of the way on Saturday, free up my time for my unit, my family during the week. That's just how I liked to roll. And it felt efficient to me, because if I'm going to put my Mary Kay attire on, put my makeup on, schlep my skincare class bags, drive somewhere, like I'd rather just do that once and knock out 15 faces rather than to do that 3 to 4 times. And that's like getting ready, getting dressed, makeup on point, skincare class bags ready. Like I kind of only had to do that once a week and got all my personal work done versus doing that multiple times a week. So it felt very efficient to me. So that's an example of working smart and hard. Let's see. Let's keep moving on, because I remember I told you I was going to actually possibly get through all 6 of these. Okay, I do want to touch on linked power starts. Oh goodness, okay. Let's get through this, okay. There's so much I want to say. Okay, linked power starts, the real quick version. That's when a power start you hold in January pours into February. And the reason it pours in is for multiple reasons. And the number one strongest reason is because of bookings from bookings. So that you're going to that party, and yes, that's falling off your date book, but you're adding 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 more future appointments from that party. Okay. I'm not going to train on bookings from bookings because I feel like we have that, right? Okay. I hope we have that. And so it was pouring over into the end of January and into February. And so then when it came February 1st, it wasn't like panic. I need to go from 0 to 10 by the 5th. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm pretty set up for February. Let me add some here, add some there, coach this, coach that, make sure it's strong, and I'm good. So you're not putting the same level of like panic energy into getting your book 10 or 15 or 20 by the 5th because it really poured over from the work you did in January. That is ideal. And then also what happens with linked power starts is that you start seeing the same groups of people. And that's awesome. That's awesome. So like you have a party and then the sister books a party and then you go to the sister's party and the mom and the sister are there too, but then the sister invited her coworkers. The only time this doesn't work is if the same 5 people keep coming to like multiple parties. But even then, that's great because you're like building a relationship. You're layering these people. You're getting to know them. You're becoming a part of their life. But ideally, they're inviting a couple new people. So then you branch out into her group of church friends, and then you branch out to her group of workout friends. And you're continuing to network and meet new groups of people from the same core group that you keep seeing over and over again. And they eventually become your best customers, your best recruits. They come in with inventory. They know how the business works because they've seen you do it. That's how we want to roll. I think that's the most beautiful way to work this business is linked power starts and bookings from bookings. Okay, so that's, I think, have we covered it, guys? Have we covered personal business? I hope so, and I hope you've embraced it. I hope you see it with new, fresh eyes. I hope you have a new, fresh desire for it. Trust that you like just really grabbing onto it will transform your business and the joy that you experience in the process. So let's move on to new consultant systems. It is, I did this one-on-one coaching with systems several years ago and had directors rank in order like what they felt strongest in and what felt the weakest. And new consultant systems, interestingly enough, was very consistently rated the weakest among my area sales directors and go-get directors as feeling like the most shaky. And so next to personal business, this is the place we'll spend the most time starting next week and for the next few weeks. We're going to spend some time in new consultant systems. And so I'm going to ask you a question that you're going to fill in your packet. And I think this is where any system starts. Or if you want to tweak or update or transform or create a new system, this is a good question to ask for a question like this. And for new consultant systems, you would ask yourself the question, in the perfect world, like if you could just like design the perfect new consultant in the perfect Mary Kay world, what would you want her to know and to do in her first 6 to 8 weeks in the business? And so you ask yourself that question, and then you just let your brain dump it out on paper in no order, just bullet points, chicken scratch. You just write it out, everything that comes to mind. In the perfect world, what would you want your new people to know and do in the first 6 to 8 weeks of business? You pour it out on paper, and then you look at those items and you systematize them, and then you just inspect what you expect and put it or create ways for them to know and to do, and track it to make sure they're knowing and doing. And that is how you can create your own personal new consultant systems. Now, I have a 12-step program, which essentially broke a really big welcome packet down that I have, and instead of this big welcome packet, it became just these simple individual steps. And that I created that came from my brain. I love how that works. I find success with it. I find that my new people love it and are successful with it, but that just may not work for you. You want to just take ownership of your new consultant systems. And so if you start using mine or maybe someone else's, that's great, but eventually you want to just really own what you are going to lead your new people to do. And we're all going to have like, kind of similar systems, like setting up your website. I don't know a director or an NSD who has new consultant systems that one step doesn't involve setting up the website, And so we're all going to have similar systems, but it's amazing how when it's your own style, your own format, your own forms of communication, and you really own it and are excited about it, you will be more effective as their leader, and they will be more effective as a brand new consultant. I think sometimes we don't recruit because we don't know what the heck to do with these people when they come in. And we don't like that feeling of not knowing what to do or having resources or knowing where to lead them. And so we're a little subconsciously hesitant to even bring her in. But man, if you love your new consultant systems and your flyer and your website and your videos and the communication and conversation you're going to have with her, you love that and you are ready for that and prepared, you will recruit more people because you are expecting new people to come in and you know what to do with them when they do. Okay. And so is that where you're at with your new consultant systems, that you are just like dying to recruit somebody new because you want to put her through your systems? And if not, just start with that question. In the perfect world, what would you want a new consultant to know and to do in her first 6 to 8 weeks? Figure out what that is, make it a system, and then track it. And we'll dig more into those details later. I think there's an importance to have a good combination of systems and FaceTime with your new people. And so, whether you do their welcome orientation in person or not, or this stuff like in person or not, I mean, in person is always better, but I went through different seasons of doing different things. But I always have systems and resources on my website and my app, and then one-on-one individual communication in person if possible. So you do want to have both for obvious reasons. And so we're going to dig into that next week. Yeah, we're going to dig into that next week because we're going to keep going because we're going to get through this. Okay, next one is meetings and events. It's another system. Your weekly meeting and workshop and any events that you do. And that includes, guest events, muffins and makeovers, pizza and possibilities, eyelash clinics, any sort of extra themed events that you do. And this also involves unit events as well, although we'll touch more on that in another category. And so meetings and events. Let me just go into one brief thing because I feel like this is most valuable in this category. And we'll get to the other details later. Number one is to have one. Yeah. I would not be a national sales director today without my weekly meeting. I promise you. I promise you. I would not be an NSD today without my meeting. And I know not all 200 US NSDs would say that, but I would guess that the majority of them would. Okay, so I know there's different ways to do that, and I realize you may be in a circumstance or situation where that's not an option, and so you're doing technology or Zooms or Facebook Lives, and those are great. That's awesome. But mastering the weekly workshop and being in front of your people, training them, loving them, affirming them, recognizing them, being in front of their people and your people, allowing guests to experience the Mary Kay culture and experience the magic of that, showing up, having to lead a group every single week, having to plan it, having your key people and your reds have opportunities to show up and be a leader. I mean, the list goes on and on of the benefits of that, you guys. It just does. And don't wait for people to want to come to create it. Create it and they will come. And if they're not coming right now, you have control over your personal guests who come. We can always control that. We can always stay centered. So my favorite format of my meeting, absolute favorite, and I've tried it every which possible way it could possibly be done, and this is my absolute favorite, is from 6:30 to 7. Facials happen that are led by the individual consultant who is doing the facial with their individual guest. And so if somebody doesn't have a guest, they would just show up more at like 6:45, 6:50, about 10 minutes before the meeting starts at 7. Because it doesn't really officially start at 7, but facials are happening between 6:30 and 7. And what this allows is many things. First of all, nobody's ever late. Even if they're 20 minutes late, they're not late because it starts at 7. But guests are told it starts at 6:30, and consultants who have guests come at 6:30. And so inevitably somebody's running late. And that would bug me so much. I mean, I just couldn't stand it when somebody would walk in late after I started my meeting. Like, I couldn't stand it. And so that was one solution that I came up with, is from 6:30 to 7, it's just casual. I've got music on, consultants are and guests are trickling in. Consultants are trained to walk them through the miracle set, satin lips, and foundation. And they got referrals during satin lips. So they're sort of doing like a mini quick party or facial experience right then and there. And then I'm just popping around the room, like introducing myself. And I make sure I meet every guest who's there, look her in the eye, ask her a few questions about her, and remember her name. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to memorize everybody's name and make like a connection, make some kind of connection, build some kind of rapport. But it's casual. There's music going. It's casual, casual, casual. So people can ease into the environment. Versus like she comes from work, she shows up, she sits down, and immediately we're clapping and we're pulling out crowns and crowning people. That's normal to us in the Mary Kay world, but that is not normal in the outside world. And that can be like a shock to people. And so I wanted them to ease into the environment and kind of unwind after work and just relax a little bit. So by the time we did start clapping and recognizing people, I've already met her. I know her name. She got to ease into the environment, try some products. She's ready to go. Okay, that's another reason I love that format. And then from 7 to 7:30, we would do introductions and recognition and crown our queens and affirm and applaud, while guests just listened and watched and enjoyed experiencing the Mary Kay culture. And then 7:30 to 8, new consultants left to do new consultant training, seasoned consultants left to do seasoned consultant training, and guests stayed in the room to do to finish their makeover. Okay, they'd done their facial and their foundation. They just need to finish their color look. It was usually a dash out the door look. Before I had enough people to like actually split people up, I just had one group. So all consultants would go into a different room and do training, whether they were new or not. And then before that, they would just watch me do a party. Okay, so you might be thinking like, oh, I don't have the space to do that, or I don't have the people coming. Like, the best thing they could ever do is watch you have a party with your guests and even help you have a party with your guests. So you have her talk about the day and night cream and the miracle set, or you have her do certain parts of it that helps her to build her confidence. Okay, so I did this format I loved as a top director with a big meeting and a big unit, but you can tweak this and adjust it to fit the needs of your unit as well. So at 7:30, they left to do training, and they just did training till it was over at 8:30, and then they went home. The only way they would come back in that room is if they had a guest, and sometimes wouldn't even leave for training. If they had a guest, they would just stay with their guest. And so we did color for 30 minutes, and then the last 30 minutes from 8 to 8:30, we did marketing. That's where I shared my iStory, my dream book. We did a marketing survey, and then I closed with A, B, or C, and went around to every guest and asked her if she was A, B, or C. So we'll get into that more later next week. We didn't make it. Yeah, we're not going to make it. Okay, so we're going to close with this. I'm going to have you, I want you to envision something for our last few minutes together here. And I want you to really paint a picture in your mind. Some of you have done this activity with me. It doesn't get old. You could do this every day. It's like a visualization exercise that is sort of a meditation upon a vision casting, creating visualizations in your mind. It's creating belief in you, and it can be very powerful in clarifying your vision and then keeping the vision in front of you. Okay. So I want you to close your eyes if you can, if you're in a place where you can do that. I hope you're in just a quiet place, not driving or anything. And you're going to close your eyes and just keep them closed and really just like sink into where you're at and just be present in the moment right now, and take a couple deep breaths and just clear your mind, maybe move your body a little bit, put your pens down, close your notebooks, and just be in like a quiet headspace. And I want you to imagine in your mind that you have achieved your significant vision. And I want you to picture it, what it looks like, what it feels like, what that significant vision is. And I want you to picture yourself completing that, and that it is done. You've achieved it. And I want you to picture you at your highest and best. If you are at your highest and best version of who God created you to be, what does that look like? And I want you to picture that. And I'm going to slowly ask you some questions, and just keep your eyes closed and like let the picture unfold. So you have achieved your significant vision. You are at your highest and best of who you're created to be. So where are you in that moment? Who are you with? What do they look like? What do you look like? What are you wearing? What are people saying about you? What are you saying? Picture your face. So what is your facial expression? How do you walk into a room? How do you show up? How has achieving this vision impacted your family? What are your children saying to you, or your husband? What is he saying to you, or significant people in your life, your mom, your best friend? What are they saying to you and about you? What would this achievement allow you to say yes to that you're currently having to say no to? And what example or legacy does this set in motion for your family? Okay, go ahead and open your eyes. And you must be able to imagine it before you achieve it. It has to be pictured and visualized up here and in here 1,000 times before it becomes here, like your reality, your circumstance. And here and here. So what did you see? What picture did you see? If you had to paint a picture and add color to it, what would you paint? Or if you had to write it out in your journal, or write a story, or make it a story, what would it say? If you captured something or caught something, or if it was a new or reaffirmed dream, I want to encourage you to write it down, journal it out, draw a picture, get some visuals that would support that, because then the next step is to keep that in front of you every day and keep that vision really clear, and to continue to paint the picture and clarify the vision. So, my friends, that brings us to our hour mark. Next week, we will finish reviewing and doing a brief overview of the systems, go ahead and still fill out all 6 of them in your workbook, even though we didn't really cover, I think we got 3 done and have 3 to go. Still go ahead and fill them out and take time to do that. I think there's value in that, and then we will wrap it up next week. Okay, I'll talk to you on Facebook and see you next week, same time, same place. Love you guys.